making people aware of the VP sports role, the people in the committees and the clubs knowing that they have a go-to person, that I'm here to help and here to assist them, and I am here to support them during their time, and I want them to feel appreciated and seen and felt and heard. It creates a sense of inclusivity that is so important in our university. So first year obviously was COVID, so we didn't get to do much. I didn't even know what SUSU was or how the university operated and collaborated with SUSU. In my second year, accidentally actually, I was sent to the first AUC meeting where Matt, I believe he was the VP Sports then, he introduced himself and he tried to get people to express some interest about what was then AUC committee. And I was like, yeah, why not? It looks fancy on the CV. I nominated myself for Athletic Union Secretary. And then in my third year, there was a vacant Athletic Union officer. And that's when I started competing more with the university, started to understand a little bit more how everything works. Yeah, that's when I met Casey and I worked quite closely with her. Because the Athletics Union officer is supposed to chair the AUC committee. And so that's when I became aware of what the VP Sports is. And I was like, oh, that looks really cool. I was like, is it a paid job? She was like, yeah. I was like, that is crazy. That sounds like the dream job to me. And yeah, here we are. Satisfying everyone. I'm not a people pleaser, don't get me wrong. Inevitably, you're gonna want to prove the people that gave their vote to you right. You're gonna want them to feel like they made the right choice. And it's not always gonna be easy because there are always gonna be times that you simply can't live up to your promises maybe. One thing that I can promise is that I will always try. Well, generally, just guidance. I'm here if they want to raise a question about anything, and even if I can't answer it, I'm gonna try and direct them to a person who can, because that's my job. Stressing about what I'm gonna do next, panicking, I don't know. No, but seriously, might be too ambitious, but I would like to apply to the European Commission, maybe for a position. I'm very passionate about policy making, because I think that's where you really get to make a change, because you've got practical issues to deal with, and there's always a legal way of trying to address them. Not always objective, more often than not controversial. That's how I would best express myself, because as a lawyer I would see myself as merely executing, whereas there I can really voice my opinions. So I guess my final message to students would be not to be afraid to try anything new out and try and make the most out of the university experience, because at the end of the day, you are more than your studies.